for it or dream for it in most of the last 20 years, but somehow it's a reality, and today we welcome our esteemed guest and my personal hero to our home here at Radio Free Asia. And I won't say any more because we just want to listen to you. And Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Congressional Gold Medal awardee, Aung San Suu Kyi.
It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you today because I look upon you as old friends. I've been listening to the RFA for years and years and years. Well, the RFA Burmese service, obviously not the others, but I'm sure the others are all just as good. When during the years under house arrest, I spent many hours a day listening to the radio because that was my only contact with the outside world. And if you are a politician, and I considered myself a politician, you have to be in touch with what is going on in the outside world. It was a good thing, and in a way it was a bad thing because I felt that I had to do it out of a sense of duty. If I hadn't had a radio, then I would have been able to spend my time reading and doing what I wanted to do. But since I had a radio, I felt that it was a duty to listen to it regularly. I listened to the BBC, the RFA, the VOA, and the DVB regularly, every morning and every evening, which added up to about 6 hours a day. That was pretty tough going. But I have to say that I enjoyed the RFA programs immensely. I enjoyed the programs because not only did they provide me with the news of what is going on in the world and what is going on in Burma, but they had very many interesting programs, programs to do with literature, to do with culture, to do with latest developments in the world of technology. And I also noticed that they often played Pachelbel's canon, and I wondered whether it was because I liked it. Or was it? Which was, I didn't expect Pachelbel's canon to be played on the Burmese language service, but it was played from time to time. And I appreciated that very much, and I think Handel's Largo as well. Anyway, I thought these little interludes were very sympathetic and understanding of the RFA Burmese service. But what I want to say is why radios like yours, why radio programs like yours are important for people all over the world. Radio Free Asia or Radio Free Europe, why it is important for there to be such stations, how radio programs can help the cause of freedom anywhere and everywhere. In the less affluent countries, everybody cannot afford television. And in the less free countries, everybody does not have access to what is going on in the outside world. And it is through the radio that they discover a path to freedom. It not only frees them for the moment that they're listening from the constraints under which they have to live, it also gives them an idea of what freedom means and how you might be able to achieve it. Because if you want to be free, you have to know how free people live. If you've never known how free people live, you might not even know that you're not free. This is why programs like Radio Free Asia are so very important. And for me, the fact that I never felt myself to be unfree had a lot to do with my access to the outside world through programs such as yours, specifically tailored to meet the needs of those who are deprived of freedom. And I was one of those who was deprived of freedom. But I was not the only one deprived of freedom in my country in those years. Everybody else in my country was. So you may ask now, are we free in Burma? Are all of us free? No, I don't think we can say that all of us are free yet. To begin with, you will have heard that 500 prisoners were released yesterday, and which included about 90 political prisoners. According to our count, that leaves over 200 still in prison. I say according to our count because that's in accordance with the list of the NLD. If you take the lists of other organizations such as the AAPP, there are more political prisoners who have yet to be released. And now that we are on the path to democracy, the transition period is in some ways perhaps even more important than the years that have gone before. This is in many ways, I have been saying, is the last mile. And the last mile is often the most difficult to negotiate, the most exhausting. If you fall in the last mile, you're not going to win. So this is the time when we need all the help possible to make sure that our country keeps on the right path. Which is another way of saying that RFA is needed more than ever for us in Burma and for other people in other places which are not yet free. We need to teach our people what freedom entails, what responsibilities freedom entails. Previously, our focus was on how to achieve freedom. And now our focus should be on what kind of freedom are we trying to achieve. Freedom without responsibility is not freedom. It is lack of restraint. Lack of restraint is not the same as freedom. Freedom must be accompanied by a sense of responsibility. And this is what I think you will have to concentrate on helping our people to understand in Burma today. We are now beginning to be free. We are not yet free because there are many kinds of freedom. Have we yet achieved freedom from want? Certainly no. We have not yet achieved freedom from want. There's a lot of poverty in Burma. There's a lot that we have to overcome. Have we overcome freedom from fear? No. There's a lot of fear still in Burma. People have not got used to the fact that they have to fight for themselves. And let us admit it, even now in this period of transition, there is no rule of law yet. And where there is not yet rule of law, it means there is no complete justice. And where there is no justice, there is always fear, because you have no protection from the injustice that might be inflicted on you by others who are stronger or more influential or richer. So we have to learn now how to achieve the kind of freedom that is indivisible from responsibility. That is to say, we have to understand what risks we need to take and what risks we have to be prepared to take. Calculated risks, of course. If you want to achieve an end of any worth, you must be prepared to take calculated risks. In 2010, when my party, the National League for Democracy, decided that we were not going to re-register our party under the regulations that then prevailed, it was a risk. We knew that by refusing to re-register our party, it could have been declared an illegal organization, and that the members of our party could have been in deep trouble. But weighing everything up, we felt that it would have been unprincipled of us to re-register our party and to contest the elections under those existing regulations. So we made a decision, which has now turned out to be right, not to re-register. But it was a risk. And then in 2011, we were able to review the situation. This was because President Aung San Suu Kyi provided us with the opportunity to re-register. We talked over the necessity of the changes that needed to be made by the regulations, and we came to an agreement. And under those new regulations, we decided to re-register our party. Again, that too was a risk, a calculated risk. This re-registration could have been a mistake, because there were many people who stood against it, who declared that we should not re-register, we should not contest the elections. That would that would amount to giving in to the government that had been elected in the 2010 elections, which were of questionable fairness, let's put it that way. Anyway, there were many activists, forces for democracy, who criticized our decision to re-register. But in the end, you have to make your own decisions and take responsibility for them. We decided to re-register, and we decided to contest the elections, the by-elections. As you know, we did well in the by-elections. Actually, we expected to do well. But that is not the end of the story. After having won the elections, there was the question of the oath to be taken in Parliament. You all remember that posed a bit of a problem. Now, I took responsibility for that because it was because I hadn't looked carefully at the appendices, at the wording of the oath itself. Although the regulations allowed us to just abide by and respect the Constitution, which we were perfectly willing to do. The oath required us to defend and protect the Constitution, which was altogether a different thing. But on the other hand, we had run the elections on a platform which included amendments to the Constitution. And the Constitution itself allowed amendments to be made to it, albeit in a way that would have made it very difficult. In short, if we were to amend the Constitution, we would have to get the military on our side. Now, if we were to agree to defend and protect the Constitution, it would just mean that we would have to try to amend it from within the provisions of the Constitution. It did not seem to me actually such a bad thing to try to win the military over. So, in view of the fact that the voters who had put their trust in us wanted us to take our seats in Parliament, our allies, the ethnic nationality parties, some of whom were in Parliament, wanted us to take our seats in Parliament, and because in the end it was an oversight on our part that had put us in that predicament, we decided that we had better take the oath. And we did. And I'm glad we did. I'm glad we did because it gave our people a chance to participate in democratic politics, in the legislative procedure of a country trying to become a democracy. We have been fortunate in that both the two speakers of the legislature, the upper house and the lower house, both are very fair-minded with regard to us, the opposition. Well, there are now 45 of us because one of the previous MPs from another party has joined us. We are 45 out of 651. That's a very small minority. But we are the biggest opposition party. That is to say, we are second to the USDP, who has over nearly 400 members. Although we are a very small opposition party, because of the even-handedness of the speakers, we have been able to play a satisfactory role in the process of the legislature, of the work of the legislature. So I believe we made the right move in deciding to take the oath and enter the legislature. What it all comes down to is that in politics you have to be prepared to make compromises in the interest of the nation. You cannot stand on your pride. You stand on your principles, but not on your pride. If you stand on your pride against the interest of the nation, then you should get out of politics. You're too proud to be in that. We want the RFA to teach our people what it means to stand by your principles and yet to be able to compromise in the interests of the majority of our people, in the interests of our nation. We would like the RFA to help educate our people on how we should build up a strong foundation for the kind of democracy we wish for. For me, a democracy is a democratic society is one where both your security and your freedom are reassured by the rule of law, are assured by the rule of law. You cannot just have security without freedom. Dictatorships go in for an emphasis on security, depriving the people of freedom almost altogether. And then, of course, we do not really want an anarchic society where everybody has a freedom to destroy everybody else or to bully those who are weaker than they are. So we want a society built on the rule of law. The three planks of the platform, the election platform of the NLD were rule of law, an end to ethnic conflict, and amendments to the Constitution. We put the rule of law first because we believed that ethnic conflicts cannot be resolved without the rule of law. Now, this, I think, has been proven by what is happening now in Rakhine and to a certain extent in other areas of Burma where there is conflict. If we do not have rule of law, which must be inextricably linked to human rights, rule of law must protect human rights, must be based on human rights. There can be no peace, there can be no harmony. And this is how communal problems get out of hand. So we believe in the importance of rule of law and its link to an end to ethnic conflict. And we believe that there is a need to amend the present constitution if we are to be a genuine working democracy. So we would like you to help us to learn how we can build up a strong and healthy democracy. In my opinion, the next 2 years are going to be every bit as important, if not more important, than the last 20 years. Because it's the next 2 years, people keep talking about the 2015 elections, but it's not 2015, but what happens before we get there that will decide what 2015 is going to be like. It is now that we are shaping the future of our country, and this is where you can help. You must help our people first to think about what kind of society they want. People generally don't think about that. They just say, we want democracy, we want to be free, we want this, we want that. But they must get down to specifics, because you don't, while it is good to have general principles are not sufficient to build up a working democracy. So we want practical aid. We want educational programs, more educational programs, programs that will help us to develop a culture of negotiated compromise. I've been saying recently very often that the weakness in our society is that we have no culture of negotiated compromise. Burmese people, I don't know about others, but Burmese people are ashamed of being seen to be in the wrong. Of course you should be ashamed of doing wrong, but if you have done wrong, not to be able to admit it is even worse. I don't mean to say that you have to admit every single mistake you've made in your life. There's no need to do that. You'd probably bore everybody to death and lose all your friends to boot. But when in politics, you have to be able to, you need the courage to face your mistakes and to admit them when it is necessary to bring about harmony and reconciliation. We have to understand that nobody can always be in the right. And then you have to understand that it is not the winning that is important so much as how you win. You don't want to win by stealing votes. Well, I don't anyway. I don't know about the others. So you want to win fairly. You want to win in a way that which you can hold up your head and say, I won by going about it fairly and justly. I won out of my own exertions, out of the work that I put in, my perseverance, not because I stole other people's votes or I bribed somebody to vote for me, etc. So it's not just in elections, winning is in many areas. As we go forward to a genuine democratic society, we want to make sure that we're going about it in the right way. I do not believe that the ends justify the means. I think the means can distort the ends. If you use means which are removed from integrity and morality, then the ends will become distorted. What you had hoped for will not be what you had, or what you see. It's a bit like Animal Farm. All the hopes that they had, but the means were not right. They did not go about it in the right way, and in the end, they ended up with what they had tried to avoid at the very beginning. So I'm a great believer in the connection between means and ends. You must use the right means if you are to achieve the right ends. And I think this is what I would hope that RFA will be able to contribute to the development of Burma over the next 2 years. You must open up the minds of our people. We have been badly educated for the last 50 years, and we need greater education, not just in the formal sense in the schools, but a kind of broader education that we get outside the schools, that we get from radio stations like yours. We would like you to concentrate on that. We would also like you to help us to connect with peoples who are different from us. To serve as a bridge between different cultures, different races, different religions. There is too much conflict between different cultures, different religions, different races. To bring this conflict to an end, there must be a bridge built. As I have been saying earlier in the interview with our Donye Shui, I used to be known as Donye Shui to the rest of the staff, I don't know. And I was discussing the fact that hate is always based on fear, and mentioning that phobia, the word phobia, is usually defined in a dictionary either as irrational fear or intense dislike, which is hate. I would like all of you to think very carefully. Has there been anything you hated that you did not fear in some way? I do not think it's possible. When you hate something, there's always fear involved. So if you want to remove hate, you must remove fear. You must remove the causes of fear. Unless you can do that, you will not be able to remove hate. And unless you remove hate, you cannot really resolve conflict. So these are the lessons that we would like our people to learn in the next 2 years, which are going to be very important years for us. And I hope very much that you will be able to help us more than ever in walking this difficult path to genuine freedom. Thank you.
Just tired actually.
You took some good pictures. Such super.